A decorated officer vanishes from the records, only to resurface as the city's most feared vigilante. Wood Oak City was drowning in corruption, and the law was nothing more than a mask for criminals. Blaze Fielding had to choose: wear a badge that meant nothing, or use her fists to mean everything. Tonight, we expose the secret files of the woman who burned down the underworld to save a broken city. She must decide: remain a paralyzed guardian of the law, or become the outlaw who delivers justice. Welcome to the Shadows, story travelers, where neon lights hide the darkest secrets of the streets. We trace the steps of Blaze Fielding, a warrior forged in the fires of betrayal and absolute grit. If you crave legends born from desperation, hit subscribe and ring the bell to join our resistance. Your support is the fuel that keeps our investigation into these urban myths alive and burning bright. The year is 1991, and the air in the precinct is thick with the scent of unspoken capitulation. 3 officers stood on the precipice, watching their sworn oath crumble under the Syndicate's weight. The system was not just broken, it was designed to crush the few brave souls who dared to resist it. They faced a reality where a badge was a target and silence was the only currency worth keeping. Now, Blaze stands at the threshold: walk away in safety, or step into the abyss to find the truth. The station reeked of stale coffee and fear, a suffocating fog that choked the spirit of true justice. Blaze looked at her reflection, seeing the storm in her eyes that terrified her compromised captains. Mr. X held the city in a vice grip, his influence seeping into the marrow of the police department. With Adam and Axel, she realized the uniform was a shackle preventing them from striking back hard. In a silent room, the cold metal of her badge hit the desk, a deafening sound of final resignation. She donned the red headband, the fabric feeling like war paint against her skin, ready for the fight. They stormed the headquarters, a whirlwind of motion where every strike was a plea for liberation. The head of the snake seemed to fall, leaving a silence that felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. Yet, as the dust settles, she wonders, did she defeat the darkness, or just make room for worse? Peace was a fragile illusion, a glass house waiting for the first stone to shatter its tranquility. Blaze found rhythm in the dance studio, moving with a grace that once dodged lethal blows in alleys. But the city is a jealous beast, refusing to let its favorite warrior rest in the comfort of silence. A phone call shattered the morning. Adam Hunter had vanished into the humid, indifferent night air. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The Syndicate was not dead, merely waiting in the dark. Grief twisted instantly into a cold, calculated rage that froze the blood in her veins solid. Alongside Skate and Max, she accepted that the dance floor must be traded for the asphalt arena. The red jacket returned, heavier this time with the weight of a sister searching for her lost kin. She faces the horizon. Does she fight to save a friend, or to quench the fire burning inside her? The rescue mission was a gauntlet, the humid island air smelling of salt and imminent violence. Blaze's movement evolved, becoming a fluid dance of destruction that wasted no energy or mercy. Every lewd sneer from a thug was met with a swift, kinetic response that silenced them instantly. She demanded respect not with words, but with the terrifying precision of her martial dominance. Her heart hardened, leaving no room for hesitation as she carved a path toward Adam's prison cell. When they breached the sanctum, the physical toll was heavy, but the shadow on her soul was darker. She had tasted the chaotic freedom of the brawl again, and a part of her frightened her own mind. Saving Adam brought relief, yet the adrenaline whispered a seductive promise of unending war. Standing over the fallen, she asks herself, is she the savior, or has she become the destroyer? Time marched on, but the shadows in Wood Oak City only grew longer and more complex in design. Whether as a private eye or an officer, Blaze felt the web of crime tighten around her throat. Dr. Zan emerged from the gray mist, speaking of Rakushin bombs and a plot to level the nations. The stakes had escalated from street brawls to a ticking clock that threatened global catastrophe. Blaze pulled on her gloves, the leather creaking like the groans of a city under immense pressure. She wrote to Axel, her handwriting steady despite the tremor of dread pulsing in her fingertips. The enemies were no longer just thugs. They were cybernetic nightmares, void of human empathy. Metal clashed against bone as she fought through labs that smelled of ozone and burnt circuits. Every victory felt Pyrrhic, a desperate gasp for air in a room that was rapidly losing oxygen. She moved with the desperation of a woman who knew failure meant a silence that would last forever. The grandeur of the conspiracy made her feel small, yet her will remained the only shield left. Robots and enhanced soldiers fell before her, sparks flying like dying stars in the dimly lit corridors. The bombs were dismantled, the immediate threat neutralized, but the fear lingered like a scar. The silence that followed the explosion's aversion was deafening, ringing loudly in her ears. She looked at her hands, wondering how much more violence they could hold before breaking down. The city slept safely for another night, unaware of the monsters that had almost devoured it whole. But in the quiet, Blaze felt the gaze of an unseen observer watching her every wary move. The war had changed, shifting from physical blows to a psychological siege on her sanity. She realized the enemy was evolving, and she was running out of ways to hold back the tide. Now she confronts the void. Keep fighting an endless war, or let the world fend for itself. Warriors often find that existing in times of peace is a battle harder than any street fight. The Force tried to cage her wild spirit, offering anger management as a cure for her survival instincts. Bureaucracy felt like a noose, tightening around the neck of the woman who had saved them all. The commissioner's words were insults wrapped in policy, dismissing the blood she had spilled. Tension snapped like a dry twig, her fist connected with authority in a flash of pure instinct. It was the end of her career, but the moment her badge hit the floor, her soul felt truly free. Expelled and cast out, she walked into the rain, her head held high against the gray skyline. She returned to dance, but her ear remained pressed to the ground, listening to the city's whispers. Now she stands alone, obey the rules of a broken society, or write her own law in the streets. Years later, the whispers morphed into screams as a new syndicate rose under the chaotic Y-twins. Mind control music flooded the airwaves, a sonic weapon threatening to enslave the city's soul. Blaze did not wait for a signal. The veteran warrior knew that permission was for the weak. She donned the golden hoops and leather, a fusion of her past and the lethal woman she became. This was no longer about duty. It was a declaration of ownership over the streets she bled for. Fighting through the subway, her moves were precise, the confidence of a master on full display. She was the phoenix rising from the ashes, leading the old guard into the heart of the inferno. Every strike was a testament to survival, a message that the guardian of the city had returned. With the twins ahead, she must choose, destroy the music or silence the source permanently. As the sirens wail in the distance, Blaze stands atop the skyline, watching the smoke drift away. The cycle of violence is a wheel that never stops, and she has become its most enduring spoke. There is a tragedy in her strength. To protect the innocent, she had to become something terrifying. She adjusts her gloves, her brown eyes reflecting the city lights that hide 1,000 scars. While the music fades, she knows the fight is never over. Peace is just a pause between breaths. She is the beauty and the beast, a sentinel forever watching the shadows for the next threat. If you could erase your past trauma but lose your strength, would you take that bargain today? Her silhouette remains against the moon, a promise that as long as she stands, hope is not lost. See you in the next video, where we uncover the price others paid to keep the darkness at bay.